Good morning. Welcome to Easier Habits Live, where we do live business strategy sessions every weekday at 8 a.m. I'm Alec from Easier Habits. I'm a business growth consultant.
And I am Meg Sorensen. I am a communication coach for international relations.
And this week we're focusing on building out a video sales funnel.
Woohoo! Very exciting. Actually, no, it has been really fun. I know it sounds weird, but I've been enjoying it.
I work with plenty of people who hate marketing themselves.
Well, I hate marketing myself, but working on these little pieces doesn't feel like marketing myself, if that makes sense. It feels like helping people to understand what it is that I do and how to get my message in front of the most people, which I know that is what marketing is, but I usually think of marketing as like being super salesy, like that door-to-door salesman who's trying to like get you to buy stuff you don't need.
Right, and you're trying to help people, and people need to be able to find you because there's people who want this service who don't have it.
Exactly. So that's the good piece to it. So communication tip for the day is kind of building off of what I talked about yesterday. So for non-native speakers, I talked about, again, an accent doesn't matter as long as you are speaking clearly, right, or as clearly as you can. People will understand you. The other thing that Alec kind of touched on was the idea of correct grammar versus effective communication. So in English, there are lots of grammar rules. There's lots of vocabulary words to memorize, and they are important to a point. But there is also a point at which you do get diminishing returns by focusing on perfect grammar, especially because these days, like, perfect grammar is not generally spoken in regular life. So, when you write, it's a different story, but when you're speaking, it's okay. So if you make a mistake like using a singular when you should use a plural, people will still understand what you're saying. If you say 5 pen instead of 5 pens, people will understand that. Same thing if you mistake your subject-verb agreement. So like he go to the store instead of he goes to the store, people understand that he's going to the store. It doesn't matter that specific little grammar point. And so one of the ways that you can really start practicing your communication is stop thinking about the grammar. Just assume you are speaking in a way that people will understand and practice. Now, you will need feedback because there are times when it does matter. But getting to that practicing point and just using the language, honestly, is more important than studying massive lists of grammar rules. So good luck. Use the language.
It's actually a really good example of something I think is also true in business, which is action, the practice, and the feedback especially are more important than having more theory.
Yeah.
I've been kind of telling a few people that most people need information, like more information, like they need a hole in their head. In fact, a metaphorical hole in your head might actually be more useful because people need to forget stuff that's in their way more than they need new information.
I love information, but I fall into that, right? Because it's so easy to get bogged down because of how much information is there now. And sometimes it contradicts itself, and sometimes it's written for another audience. And so in order to see what works best for you, you really do have to try and then get that feedback, sometimes from yourself and sometimes from a coach.
Yay! All right. So yesterday we went over messaging, like high-level messaging that we might put into the sales funnel, and there were some research questions specifically about like what people are searching for, what ads you could find in Japanese just to see what the competition is like, and then the other piece was to start looking at creating templates.
Yep. And so I did fall down the rabbit hole of research just a little bit, but part of it's because I was finding some really good things. And so what I looked at first, I was only searching on YouTube yesterday, and I went and found kind of the main channels that come up when you type in like business English in Japanese or English presentations or things like that to see what would auto-populate. Now, when you just put in English, usually you get things like pronunciation.
Yep.
I mean, that's like so much of it is just pronunciation. But there were some really good ones that gave great Japanese explanations with some English examples. Most of them were from native Japanese speakers, although there were a couple from non-native Japanese speakers. One thing that I found strange is there's a lot of really popular videos that are computer voices. So, like, no, seriously,
Yeah.
like, there's a couple of channels that people, whoever makes them, puts in a conversation, and a computer is saying them. You can tell it's like the, computerized voice, not Siri. It's even worse than Siri. It's the, like, old Mac voice kind of a thing.
Does it sound better than, like, your non-native English speaker channels? Does it sound more native? Sorry, not better. But, like, does it sound more native than your non-English speaking channels explaining things with their accent, or less?
And that's the hard thing. It's different.
Right,
I would say it's probably about the same, because it's lacking still in, like, the same kinds of intonation and emotion and everything like that you would have. And it sounds very stilted. So while there isn't any accent, right, it is, an American English accent, it sounds odd and forced, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what to do. Like,
oh yeah, very old school.
Right? Like, and so I was looking at that and thinking, okay, well, these are really good ones to potentially advertise on, to show like, look, this sort of is going to help you, but not really, because it's not giving you any of the function, if that makes sense. It's just showing these conversations, having a computer read them, and having Japanese subtitles, which is not very effective. So it was a great way for me to find the things that didn't work. It was also great to see the things that are working in the popular channels. I was also looking to see what kinds of ads played on these, and I did not do the VPN thing, but none of my ads were targeted towards English learners. And that might be just because of, my demographic here in the US. It knows me.
It knows that you're an English speaker somehow.
Right. And so it's, showing me things for, like, Disneyland and Expedia, so, like, travel and, stuff like that. That would be more targeted towards me personally.
Well, it probably will assume there are people who are plenty of people who take English lessons here, but you're probably going to find less of them and more ads targeted at other countries. Yeah,
well, and none of the ads that I saw were in Japanese, so I'm going to try the VPN thing really quick today, just to see what I see if I'm doing it from Japan, and see if it's different, because I remember when we lived there, I got all kinds of ads in Japanese. It was great. So that's kind of an action item for today. Let's see. So I took more notes based on what I saw, and found, let's see, found ways in which I could help even the ones that are good, right, be better. And so as I looked at a bunch of different ones, I started to make my template, because I was looking mostly for business presentations and how I could create this template for people to use with various kind of phrases. And one of the great things about doing this kind of research is you can see what's already out there and where the gaps are, and then put them all together. And so, this one over here had 4 different elements. This one here had 7, but some of them were, missing from that first one, or they didn't have a couple that the first one did, or they combined things. And so by taking all of those, I've got a really good list now of how to do that pitch, right? And some examples of ways that people express that. I've also got a lot of ideas for future content to really get into some of the nitty gritty, which I really want to get into, but I also know that I have to prioritize right now.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it was a really productive session. One thing though that I noticed, and I figured I wanted to talk about today, is as I was looking at all of this content, I did start to feel horrendously inadequate. Right? Like, you're looking at all of this stuff that, again, these people have been on YouTube doing this for years, right? But I see, the video quality, and they're native Japanese speakers, so their explanations are so good. And I think, why am I doing this? What's the point of me? And, like, starting to get down because I can't do the thing that they're doing.
Yeah.
Right? And so it was hard, right? I just kept like, oh no, this one's better than me. This one's better than me. This one's better than me. Oh, that one's not better than me. Okay, thank you. But recognizing part of it is because we've had our talks about not getting sucked in and making sure that you are focused and, doing these like action items. I was able to take a step back once I realized that was happening and seeing like, okay, but am I trying to do that? No. That's not my value add, right? If anything, and I actually sent a couple of messages to some of the creators saying, if anything, we could collaborate because I could offer something that they don't have. So I found a couple of them that I really liked, and some of the messages I haven't heard back yet, but hopefully someone will respond to me.
I think that's great. As a coach, though, I will step in and observe this pattern. You love collaborating, which I do too.
I do.
And I would generally say, like, yes, that's a good business practice, but don't use that to procrastinate working on the sales funnel, because like this is very likely going to get you, when you learn how to do it, is definitely going to get you clients faster.
Yeah.
And it just depends. Like, yes, collaboration is good, but it always pans out much, much slower than you think. And it's very valid, and thank you for the reminder. And there's a hard limit on the scalability of it versus the nice thing about the video sales letter funnel is that it takes you in a video format, which is as personal as you can get on a scalable format, and then it makes that scale up to as many people as you can get that in front of. So,
and that makes sense. So you'll be happy to know I didn't spend a whole lot of time. I just found them and sent the messages. And part of the reason being the two that I sent in particular have a lot of followers. And so part of it was also with the aim of getting my face in front of their followers so that I could kind of piggyback on that.
Right.
So we'll see. But again, you're right. I need to,
Well, and something, having talked to you about the business too, that I can also say is that there might be the aspect of people are nervous, especially if they're non-native speakers, of having native speakers on because they don't want them to steal their audience.
Yeah.
And so one of the things you can do generally that gets people's attention is like share and boost their content.
Yes.
And so, like, in addition to like any DM or whatever, like publicly sharing their content, commenting positively very early on their threads is a way to demonstrate that like you're supporting them. You're not trying to like compete with them or take over their audience.
Yeah, definitely. And I did comment on a couple of them and liked them, but I didn't share them. I also subscribed. So, doing little things, but
Well, I guess they do on YouTube. Like, I do see a notification, so-and-so's name subscribed, which is nice. So, like, they could know that you subscribed, but they get a lot of subscribers. They're not, like, looking at that list per se.
Probably not. Not the ones that, I subscribe to. They've got, multiple thousands, or one of them had, like, a few 100,000. So.
Nice.
Yeah. So it was a good, productive day. And now I've got stuff to do today.
I would lead with starting to create the templates and fill out what you can from what you've got, and that will like narrow the research more, because there's an infinite amount of research that could be done.
Yes.
And the goal here is like the minimum amount of research to fill out those templates. And so those templates being, just creating the funnel first. We've thought about the ads and how we might get people in there. I think if we... like business English is a good key. Actually, business English is probably a pretty good keyword. People looking for that are likely to be in your audience. If there's something more specific, though, again, like a specific problem people are looking for, like how to do a business introduction or whatever, that's that can be even better.
Yes.
Or how to do a business pitch would be the best, because that's really where you're centered. But drilling down into those specific areas are good, and then that is really going to change the ad. You can try some things out just demographically, not for people who are searching, but people who match like certain demographics, certain income geographically in Japan. LinkedIn, you can target titles more, right? So like but I think a lot of people do more testing on Facebook. What I see as best practices for Facebook, and I guess we'll dive into this maybe another time, is doing a lot of small, low budget scattershot tests, rather than really just to try and see changing one thing between the tests to see which works. But we can get into that. That's one way that you can try out a bunch of things, or you can just go straight to video and see how it works. On Google, but on YouTube, but so there's going to be like an ad piece, but I don't think we have quite like you really want to know what people are searching for and what your target, like that's going to be more targeted.
Okay.
And then you're going to have the sign up page again. I loved the template that we saw with Skyline Social, where it's just like header, subheader, form, because for a lot of people, if you've gotten them into the funnel to solve a particular problem, then all you need to do is reassure them they're in the right place.
Yeah.
But like just in case, they added 3 whole bullet points below for the benefits of it, just to keep encouraging you, right? That's like simple, like 5 lines of text, right? Then you're gonna have your your actual video sales letter page. Again, that's like I think what we saw is a headline, and that same headline repeated as the thumbnail of the video again. Like all you're doing is like they already clicked through to get help with this problem. You're just reassuring them they're in the right place. And then they had like step 1, watch the video. Step 2, reach out to contact or connect for a schedule. That's how they set it up. But another thing we can play with that I've heard recommended is actually you don't have anything but the video to distract, and then there's like a schedule a free call or something that pops up a certain while into the video. And I think that's a trade-off between quantity and quality. And I think probably if you're starting out and you don't have like funnels and ads that already get thousands of views or whatever, we can probably start with just like the button on the page. But if you get a lot of people calling that like aren't really serious, then you can gate that by like not showing that button until 5 minutes into the video or whatever. And so only people who have at least a 5-minute attention span, like care about this enough to watch for 5 minutes, will actually call you. So that is what, again, the funnel looks like. And again, so you have a headline that you're going to reuse like 3 places, right? It's the headline of the 2 pages plus the thumbnail of the video. And beside that, you need a call to action CTA. Maybe 1 line of text with that, again, reminding them of the benefit, but most of that's going to be in the video anyway. And that could even be an echo of one of the 4 lines on the first page. So like you really only need 5 lines, and it's the video sales letter content that is going to be the big challenge. A 5 to 10 minute video, recapping yesterday a little bit, describing the problem, alternative solutions, why your solution is best, and then the call to action, just pointing them towards the schedule call button. So yeah, that's the template, right? And like 5 lines of text, it's really mostly just the video is the centerpiece. And that works because on 2 levels. 1, you don't have to be on camera, they said, but as a coach, I think that's important to be on camera and build connection with your audience.
Connect with me.
She's really good at that, even when she's being creepy.
I'm in a silly mood right now.
And so like that's the big thing, that's the challenging thing. And then other than that, it's like 5 lines of text, 1 or 2 of them repeated a couple times in a button. And so it's like really simple. And it's the targeting of that text. And how you get people onto that page, that probably is one of the trickiest things in the video.
Okay. All right, so today I've got probably making my script for the VSL, and let's see, writing out that landing page, writing out that and creating that. 'Cause that
2 pages. Well, and if you're doing it on. So, well, I guess technically I get 3 pages, right? So the schedule call has to go somewhere, which I didn't talk about. But yeah, hook that up to like a Calendly sort of automated page.
That's easy enough.
Right? And I think they have their own landing pages. And so you don't have to actually create something for that. So it's really like the 2 pages, put filler text in there for now or whatever, put what you can. But focus on having that there so that can anchor your research. And you can kind of filter through that.
Nice. So yeah, I think today's going to be a lot of writing and kind of setting things up, and then I'll do my videotaping tomorrow, maybe after I've gotten some feedback on my script.
Awesome.
So that'll probably be what we do tomorrow. I also have to say, as we're doing all of this, like I hadn't been taking notes, and it was okay, but since starting to take notes yesterday, I took 1 page of notes in our session, which then I followed up with 2 pages of notes while I was following through on my action items. And then now I've got like a page and a half of notes from today's session. And it makes it so much easier to keep track of everything. And I know people say, take notes, you'll remember better. And you think, oh no, I'll remember because I will. No, I didn't, or I don't as well. It's so nice having this. And so take notes.
I have some clients that I have done summaries for, essentially take notes for, and they will intermittently take notes themselves. But I have to admit, there's just from a learning psychology point of view, I'm thinking like, I should maybe push back on them. I know they like having my summaries, but they if they're leaning on them too much, they might be missing out on the learning they do. Especially what I notice is you're handwriting your notes as opposed to typing them.
Yes.
Might be awkward to have like a computer on screen. But it is also more effective to write by hand because you have that like kinesthetic, memory, which is stronger than just hitting a bunch of identical keys. And so that is, that is a pro tip if you really want to absorb stuff. I mean, the best thing you can do is like reformat it, right? Teach it to like recreate your own structure and teach it to somebody else. But in terms of just like note taking, then absolutely writing out by hand is one of the best ways to retain information. And I was gonna make a note about something related.
While you're thinking about that, I'll say something that,
thank you.
Again, this is for me, and when I'm coaching other people, I do take notes myself, but again, it's from my perspective and what I need to remember for our next session. So it may not necessarily be the big things that they're noticing. And so again, yes, the person who does the work gets the benefit of the work. And so if, I'm doing the work for my clients, I'm benefiting and they aren't. And so that's what I always tell them as a means of like, hey, really always have something next to you that you can jot down notes and refer to later because it's so helpful.
All right. Well, my idea, whatever it is, gone. But I do remember, that's okay. These things come and go. But I do have a business tip that I remember. And so I've been trying to dog food this as well. I went straight for what I knew would be the hardest for me, which is doing the video sales letter. I jotted out some points, and then I have a particular way of like really trying to nail this because I'm trying to master this video sales letter, not only as like the video sales letter and get a good video sales letter in, but what I want to do is get that as a pitch, like really get this because this core idea, I think, is very different than what a lot of other coaches are selling, and it's what my clients react strongly to. And my hardest part was finding other people looking for that, and I realized, one, there's very few people looking for coaches. People get recommended coaches a lot more often, and that's the path than like searching for coaches online. But realizing that like, all right, there are people, like my people are not the people looking for coaches, my people are the people looking for co-founders, which is actually more expensive and riskier than grabbing a coach because you have to give away equity. And so when your company is worth nothing, I guess it's cheaper up front, but like it's very expensive in the long term, and it's actually more likely to make your company fail from the research that I was doing, which was kind of this interesting, and that's kind of part of the whole pitch. Like you'd think two heads are better than one in terms of a company, but founder friction kills 65% of companies or startups. And that's probably not general companies. That's probably like the particular, there's probably, a particular Silicon Valley style of like startup companies that they're looking at, but still, that makes it look like you're actually more likely to succeed without a co-founder than you are, not because other people can't help you, but because of the giving someone equity and decision-making power of your company opens up the possibility that it might fail because there's two decision makers or two or more decision makers that could disagree. And so, coaching is a much safer version where you're not giving away chunks of your company, but you're getting the support and the feedback, etc., and the accountability. So that was my pitch. I really wanted to get that to sink in. And one of the things I noticed as well, kind of similar to Meg's, along the same vein, the theme, like once you get into the weeds, your great idea always feels less great. right? Like the insecurity comes in when you actually try and apply what you're working on. And that's just like a pattern I've noticed. And there's two reasons I think for this. One is there's like a physiological process that happens when you start to concentrate. So like when you're kind of daydreaming and like pie in the sky brainstorming, that's one thing. But when you actually have to focus, the chemicals that help you focus are like cortisol and stress hormones. Yeah. And so like actually stress hormones are focus hormones. But then that means focusing feels like stress because it's the same thing biologically. And that's a fun thing to learn. And so one, like when you shift from like having this great idea to putting it into practice, it's always going to feel more stressful just biologically. And it's not you. It's not anything that's wrong with you. You know, if it's something that's wrong, it's something wrong with the human species.
No, it's something that kept us alive back when we were like cavemen and everything.
Right, it is. It's and it functions differently today, and you just have to grapple with that. But there's a second reason, which is when you're brainstorming and you have this brilliant idea, right, that I laid out, that like there are a lot of people looking for the support, someone to scaffold their business skills and all the benefit that comes from collaboration, and they're looking for co-founders, which is actually a much riskier and long-term more expensive proposition than getting a coach. And I realized like, okay, that sounds like a brilliant pitch, right? But when you sit down and have to do a 5 to 10 minute video, you're starting to realize all of the little things that you're not thinking about when you come up with that brilliant idea, right? Yeah. My delivery, I'm stumbling over my words, I'm feeling allergic, and that interrupts the video and the flow, and all the doubts start to creep in because you're seeing a lot of the nuance. This is a good thing. This is actually the process of you being able to think through your idea more completely and starting to see the cracks in it. Like, that is not you doing it badly or failing your idea. That is the natural evolution. Yeah. But just realizing how insecure I got making that video because I had to think about all of the aspects of like video production, my own speaking skills and presentation. I had to think through my idea more specifically, not just that high level pitch, but like bullet points. Like, what does it feel like to feel stuck and be on a growth plateau in your company, and what are what are your alternatives, etc. So the business tip is just know that moving from idea to execution is going to feel painful on two fronts. It's going to feel stressful just because biologically it's the stress chemicals you need to focus, and then once you actually get into the zone, it's not so bad. And then two, the other difficult thing you're going to run into is as you flesh out your idea, you're going to see it more completely with some of its, flaws and little nooks and cranny. It's, the things it's missing, the things that you are missing in the initial, like, high-level pitch. And that is also, as it is supposed to be, that is the evolution of your thinking. And what happens as you keep persisting in, like, making the video or making your funnel, whatever, is that you start to realize you don't have to pay attention to some of those cracks. Like when you talked about, am I trying to do the things these people are doing? You're like, wait, no, I'm not. So that's not something I have to pay attention to. And so those things will filter out. And as you persist and get comfortable with something, again, it becomes less overwhelming because you know where to put your attention. And you can either shore up some of those gaps or realize you can just straight up ignore them because they're not important and you know what to focus on. And just prepare yourself mentally, like the moving from idea to action, there's going to be a biological, emotional response to that. And that is something that you'll need to push through. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. You just keep practicing. And as the focus chemicals kick in and you are focused, and as you get more experience and you know that you don't have to pay attention to every little idiosyncrasy, then it will feel a lot more comfortable. And that just takes practice and time.
Yep. Quick question before we end.
Yep.
You use dog fooding as a verb.
Oh, yeah.
What does that mean?
Oh, nice. That's a Silicon Valleyism. So the idea of dog fooding is like eating your own dog food is the expression. And it's kind of a weird one. But it means that using what you are producing for other people, using for yourself what you're producing for other people. So at Facebook, they have to use Facebook Messenger for business.
Yeah.
All right. And that's kind of a weird thing to do in general because it's like, well, it's kind of designed for regular chat and it wasn't really like, it's not Slack. But at the same time, if everyone working on the company is not using their product, it's probably going to stink because there's going to be all sorts of bugs they're not aware of, or like bugs will be found quicker, etc. There'll be more improvements made if you're actually using it.
Okay.
So that like at the same time I'm walking you through video sales funnel stuff, I'm trying to work ahead a little bit, do it myself, and run into like all of the barriers. You are actually more comfortable with video than I am, so you're probably less likely to have that reaction to creating the video. But I knew that would be hard for me, so that's what I led with.
Okay.
And you know, wanted to see if I gained any particular insights from the process.
Yeah. I love learning new things. Thank you.
Yeah. You should teach that to all your Japanese people.
Fooding.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like, all right, yeah, probably not something to teach all Japanese people because that's like, again, a Silicon Valleyism. It's kind of regional. Let us know in the comments if you use dog fooding or are familiar with that expression and where you're from. Is that only a Silicon Valley thing? Who knows? Anyway, tune in at 8 a.m. every weekday to get these live streams. I still don't see any comments in chat, but that is our goal, is to create a community of business owners, solopreneurs, and entrepreneurs who are creating new businesses and products and services, and to be able to support you guys and hopefully eventually have, you know, a nice vibrant chat that we can address at the end of these episodes. So until tomorrow,